Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coming in Hot with Abby Baird. I am so excited to welcome y'all today. My name is Abby. I am so fortunate to host this show and have a really great conversation today. Coming in Hot is all about the supply chain for the next generation, the generation that is coming in to this wonderful industry, obstacles we might face, how we can interact with the older generation or the current generation of supply chain, and how can we get involved and enter it. I think it's a really beneficial conversation, and for all of us in supply chain, it's super important that we integrate my generation that's entering the industry. So today we're about to have a wonderful conversation all about entering the workforce. How do you get involved? And since we are in the heat of recruiting season for many college students and just many companies in general, I thought it would be so beneficial to have a conversation about how you can start the process, how you can feel confident within that process. So I have a really special guest that I'm so excited to introduce. I will let her introduce herself, but welcome to the stage, Madeline Jones. Hi,
Madeline. Hello, Abby. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's good to see you.
Oh, it is so good to see you. And I'm so excited that you are here and you're going to have this conversation. I didn't introduce yourself because I wanted you to give yourself the chance to introduce yourself, hype yourself up, tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and kind of share my knowledge and expertise in career development and the workforce. My name is Madelyn Jones. I currently serve as the Director of Employer Relations for the College of Education and Health Professions at the University of Arkansas, but also have the opportunity to work across campus and with different industries and different representatives from different majors and colleges. I attended Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia, Arkansas, which is South Arkansas, where I obtained my Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and then immediately went on and earned a Master of Education in Student Affairs and College Counseling. So I started my professional career. I've been in higher ed professionally for about 6 years now. Started in academic advising and then moved into career counseling and career services. And I've really just found my passion in helping students feel comfortable and confident going into the workplace. And that has kind of led me to where I am now. So I really enjoy working with students and helping them feel comfortable and confident transitioning from academics and undergrad to the professional workforce and making them or helping them feel prepared for their career. And I love working with employers to recruit and hire students and just learn more about their industry and what they are looking for in our graduates and in their new hires. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Well, thank you for sharing. As I'm sure the audience can tell, you know everything about this process, about hiring, applying, interviewing, resumes, the whole shebang. You have a lot of knowledge to bring. So I'm excited for our audience to benefit from the knowledge you have to provide. As the audience joins the stream, make sure you put in the comments where you are tuning in from, what's your name, kind of maybe something about your career journey, about how you entered supply chain, what that process was like for you. But additionally, any questions you may have, we want to get to know you. We want to answer your questions. So make sure you put in the comments where you're from or any questions you have. But Madeline, we have so much to talk about. I think a lot of people find the application process and applying for jobs and entering the workforce to be really daunting. Hey, Sarah from Toronto. I'm so excited. I'm excited for this discussion too. It's going to be really great. But I think so many people can feel, especially college students, can feel really overwhelmed by the process, whether that is they don't feel confident enough. Supply chain specifically, a lot of people just fall into the industry and they may feel like they don't have the qualifications to do well in a job or to be able to speak about their experiences within an interview because they might not find it applicable. So I kind of want to circle back from the very beginning and talk about what is the purpose of a resume or a cover letter? What benefit do they have for students, people outside of college, and how can they develop those documents to make sure that they are in a position to succeed?
Yeah. So a resume is really your first step, your first opportunity to catch the attention of a recruiter or a hiring manager. That is your foot in the door. A cover letter is telling a hiring manager why you are interested in that specific position or that specific company, and how can you contribute to their company through your past achievements and experiences. So both documents will tell a recruiter a lot about how you could apply the skills that you have already obtained, whether they're related to supply chain or not, but how you could take those skills and then apply it to their company and position. Both documents, a resume and cover letter, could also tell a lot about a candidate's professionalism, attention to detail, and communication skills. So, for example, if a resume is not formatted in a useful or effective manner, or it doesn't have a strong professional appearance to it, that could really make an employer doubt that candidate. So formatting and just understanding the what the standard resume would look like for supply chain or for the business industry could really help benefit in making sure that you're utilizing that opportunity as the recruiter is overviewing those documents in the best way possible. So I really encourage candidates to have a good understanding of what that standard resume looks like in their field, and to have either an HR professional or a career services center review your resume and cover letter prior to using it for job applications. I think that's really the best way that that you can utilize those documents in the best way possible.
I was like, that's awesome, because I think, and I was like, I know a question just popped on the board is like, how can my resume stand out? Is that a lot of people, their resumes aren't necessarily, I just feel like they lack confidence within it. And so they feel like they almost need to have quantity over quality, when in reality, we can speak about our experience in a very unique way to make us stand out for a position. Now, do resumes need to necessarily be super uniform, or how can you kind of add your personality, make it stand out? Does it all need to be, and I know it might be different for different industries, but for like supply chain and business, how can you be a little creative, or should it be like a little more uniform?
In my personal opinion, I think business, just that industry in general, it's very professional. I don't encourage a whole lot of color. Now, you could use color minimally if you wanted to use color in your borders or in your headings. You could use italics or bold in certain words just to draw attention. But anytime that you have color or big headings or anything like that, you just want to make sure that it does not take away from your content, that it's not too distracting. You want to make sure that you are using color and personalization and font to enhance your content and draw the reader's eye in. And if it's too distracting, that is a really quick way to kind of disregard. So it is okay to use colors and different fonts and add your personal touch. You just want to make sure that it's in a way that enhances your content and is not too distracting. But other ways that you could make sure that your resume stands out. A lot of times I'll see excess white space or unused white space on a resume. And I really encourage students to utilize as much of the page as possible. You want to make sure that everything is consistent and that it's organized well, and it just has a good professional appearance. Another way to tailor your resume and make it stand out is to tailor your documents to the job description that you're applying for. So really reading through the job description and pulling out keywords and specific language and verbiage that's used, and incorporate that same words, same language into your bullet points and resume. That can really tailor and match your resume to that job description. But really using specific detail to make sure that your bullet points are quality bullet points. Ask yourself, what skills were you using? Who or what benefited from that specific task? What was the outcome? So really giving the recruiter and the hiring manager a lot of good quality content and description behind what you were doing during those experiences.
That is so helpful. And also, thank you for explaining what a cover letter is. Something I hear just as a student and someone who's like in the heat of like the recruitment process and applying, who's someone who's been there. I hear so many times just students, we hear that we have to have a cover letter, but no one necessarily teaches anyone how to write a cover letter. I feel like there's a really big emphasis on resumes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a student in the audience, I was like, that is such a good nugget to take away. Also for the audience, that anyone is listening or who is here with us, feel free to throw in any tips or anything that you've done that has been really beneficial for your process. Because as Madeline said, I think you started one of your questions saying, well, in my opinion, because a lot of this can be subjective. So we all can learn from each other. So if you have any tips that's been really helpful to you in the application and hiring process, feel free to let it know. And then maybe we can talk about it, but our audience will definitely benefit from it. And then obviously a huge theme here is that a lot of people just don't feel confident, whether that's in their documents or that's the way they carry themselves. I think I was like talking to other supply chain students and just other students in general. An area that we really want to grow in is feeling confident in your interview process. Mm-hmm. So what are some ways for anyone, whether you are in college or not, to enter an interview feeling confident? And that I think that can be more than an interview too, right? Like a career fair, applying for jobs. Just what are some ways that essentially people who are applying for jobs can grow their confidence and feel comfortable in the process?
Absolutely. There's a saying that I like to share with students that goes, practice enhances your preparedness. And when you're more prepared, you're more confident. And when you are more confident, the more successful that you are going to be or feel. So it's super important to be prepared going into a career fair, into a job application or interview. So ways that you could be prepared are to research what employers or organizations are going to be at a career fair before you go. So make sure that you go into a career fair and you have a plan and you have an idea of what specific employers that you want to talk to and talk to them first. And even if it's just, hey, I'd really love to learn more about your company, and just kind of have a general curiosity and a genuine curiosity about that company and that organization. That will go a long way. Before any interview or application, research. So make sure that you understand what the job description is, that you have a pretty good grasp of what you are going to be expected to do in that position. Look at the company's website and social media pages. See what's their mission and their values. Can you speak to that? Can you relate to that in any way? How can you contribute to that company environment and company culture? Check their social media pages and see what are some current events or any type of programs or initiatives that they're doing within their company. And then you can kind of bring those into conversation during an interview, and it will really show that you have a true interest in in being a part of that culture. Also, read employer reviews and company information on Glassdoor. You can really get a lot of good information on Glassdoor before you go into an interview. That could really be helpful. So it is vital to make sure that you can show an employer that you have an understanding of that position, the company, and the industry, and that you are showing a genuine interest. And if you can do that, then you are already ahead of the game, which should enhance your confidence level.
That's awesome. And I once heard a piece of advice. It was like, yes, a company is interviewing you, but equally, like, you are interviewing the company as well. And so I know, as I think many people feel like all this they can potentially feel, and audience, let me know if you relate to this, but they can feel potential, like, wanting to be like, oh my gosh, I need to act like this, or I need to be like this to make sure I fit into the company.
Yes.
When in reality, there is definitely a company out there that, like, you'll get the interview and you'll just vibe. I was like, the vibe is a thing, and you're aligned with, and and just like releasing the pressure of having to be a certain type of person, and just showing up, being prepared, and like looking for that energy between you and your hiring manager. Because absolutely. I was like, that will carry into the job. If you feel like you have to fake who you are in the interview, then it might not be the best fit.
And I think more and more, I feel like, and the stories that I have heard from student experiences is the most productive interviews and the most successful interviews have just come from having a genuine connection, a personal connection with each other, with the interviewer and the employer, and vice versa. So if you can go into an interview and just make those connections and just make it real personable, that usually goes a long way. So just try to make it super conversational, and just make those connections instead of trying to think of, oh, I have to, all of these checkpoints that you think that you have to make in your head. So I really encourage students just to kind of go into it and be like, hey, this is just a conversation, and not putting that pressure on themselves.
Yeah, truly. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings having conversation with human beings. And I was like to the audience, anyone who's relating this, like, take these pieces of advice, and when you apply for your next job or you're going to your next interview, remember this, because I know throughout my previous application processes, like, holding those into account, it definitely, like, boosts your confidence, and it just makes you feel a lot more comfortable going forward. Something unique about, in my opinion, about supply chain specifically is that a lot of people just fall into supply chain. I'm very fortunate to be studying supply chain management, but a lot of people have degrees in a bunch of different areas. They may not have a degree. They may just have experience in a plethora of different areas, and they find themselves just falling into supply chain, or they just see a position that, like, really stands out to them. So since a lot of people just fall into it, their resume may not, quote unquote, align with what a job description may look like. How can people who are interested in supply chain management positions cater their past experience to align with specific supply chain opportunities?
I think this is very common, or more common than people realize. So my first advice is don't be discouraged or think that you don't have a shot just because your experience or your academic background doesn't align with the industry. First, every job and work experience that you have had carries transferable skills. So first, identify what specific skills, whether those are hard skills or soft skills, that you would need for that supply chain position. And then begin to think back through your previous experiences and try to form connections and articulate how you have achieved those specific goals. So in what situations have you demonstrated time management, prioritizing tasks, customer service, the ability to critically think and problem solve, or use effective communication? Those are just examples, but use those to tailor your experience and competencies to the position that you're applying for. The second thing is, if you are interested, or you are wanting to look into supply chain or any major or any career that is outside of your major or experiences, look for ways that you can enhance your hard skills and build new skills by utilizing platforms like LinkedIn Learning or Skillshare or any other type of digital certification that you can do on your own time. I'm a personal fan of LinkedIn Learning because you can complete courses or learning paths in a variety of different areas. And once those are completed, then you can link those certifications to your LinkedIn profile and make that visible to employers and recruiters and hiring managers so that they can see that. And then you could bring up in an interview or whenever you're talking to a recruiter and say something like, even though my academic background is in sociology, I have a strong interest in supply chain and have worked on several digital certifications in project management or supply chain foundations or inventory management, whatever it may be. And that will say a lot to a recruiter in the sense that will show that you have taken that extra step, that you have put in your own time to gain these competencies that you haven't been able to get in your academic curriculum or in the work experiences that you've had.
I'm honestly about to take your own advice, because I think even for someone who is studying supply chain and who is fortunate to have some supply chain experience, there are still some gaps within my education because your education just can't cover fully everything.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you are looking to just enter supply chain and you have no previous experience, or you are currently studying it or working in it, there's supply chain sustainability courses, there's negotiation courses. LinkedIn Learning is definitely a great tool. What's the role what's the role of LinkedIn in the application process? How should people who are looking to begin the hiring process and the recruiting process, how should they utilize LinkedIn to their best advantage?
LinkedIn is a wonderful resource whenever it comes to searching for jobs, but also just information seeking. So LinkedIn is the best platform to build your network and to make connections with professionals who are in the industry. Even if you just wanted to learn more about what they do on a daily basis, or just form that relationship, because once you can form that connection and build that relationship, that will lead to getting a lot of insight that you may not get just from searching for positions on Indeed or through an external site. So if you can identify a professional within a company or within an industry and find a mentor, but that will allow you to be aware of a lot of different opportunities, whether they are informally looking for an intern, or they know of a position that's going to be posted that's coming down the pipeline that hasn't been posted yet. So utilizing LinkedIn to build connections, build your network, and to start just initiating conversation with professionals is a great way to get your foot in the door, to show an interest in that company, that position, and just to make yourself a better professional. I really think LinkedIn is a great resource for students to use, or anyone to use.
Mm-hmm. I agree. LinkedIn, I feel like we're kind of preaching the choir a little bit, but LinkedIn is definitely a valuable tool. And one thing that you said that really stood out to me is being able to connect with people who are already working at these companies, or like hiring managers who can provide you a lot more insight than rather than just a different source, or just straight up applying to the company with no insight at all. And I think this relates to the environment that the pandemic has created, which is very incredibly virtual, 100% virtual, and really being able to connect with people globally and internationally. And LinkedIn's definitely a great tool to do that, because you can connect with people who are not necessarily like you and I are both in Northwest Arkansas, which is a hub for supply chain, but for other people who might not be in a supply chain hub, LinkedIn provides you to be able to connect with people everywhere. So, and I think this definitely relates to the pandemic trends. So what trends from the pandemic do you see continuing post-pandemic?
Yes, I think we are starting to see the new normal is going to be this kind of hybrid approach. I do not think that virtual meetings are going anywhere. Abby, as you mentioned, we were both here in Northwest Arkansas. Even here on campus, it's so much easier to just hop on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call to chat. So I do not, or I anticipate to continue to see more virtual interviewing post COVID and post pandemic, just because it's so much more time and cost effective. So just make sure that you are preparing for these types of virtual interviews. So you can do that by gathering all of the details about your interview. So what type of interview is it going to be? Is it going to be live? Is it going to be recorded? What will the video interview platform be? And make sure you're familiar with that platform. Is it going to be through Zoom? Is it going to be through Google Meets or Microsoft Teams? There's so many different platforms that companies can utilize for their interviewing process. How long is the interview going to be, or what's the expectation that the interview is going to be? Practice with your technology. Practice just maybe with a friend or a family member, making sure that your technology is good and you know how to set it up. Make sure that your environment is private, it's well lit, there's not going to be a whole lot of distractions, it's quiet. And dress professionally as you would going into an in-person interview. So those are just a few ways that you can prepare for this kind of virtual world, especially when it comes to interviewing moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I also think with being in a virtual world, growing your confidence, it's a great space to grow your confidence because it can be a little less nerve-wracking to be on a Zoom call versus in person. So I know, at least I was like, I know everyone has different opinions on that, but definitely take advantage of this virtual world and utilize your resources to the best of your abilities. Before we ask you a couple more questions, for those who follow the Let's Talk Supply Chain account, y'all know we have a TikTok. I was like, I'm biased, but I think it's a great account. So we're going to watch some TikToks that relate to this topic and what it's like to apply for jobs and be there. But also, if you are interested in making TikToks that relate to supply chain, let us know. We would love to feature you. Or post a TikTok and tag at Let's Talk Supply Chain on TikTok. But let's watch them. They're honestly pretty funny, I think.
I love TikTok. It makes me feel young, like I'm in the know,
Well, I like this one because I think the person, whoever that is, Erin McGough, she is like being very candid about the real struggles people experience in the application process. It's not always the easiest of processes, and can be a lot of obstacles. And I think it's great that she's actually speaking about them rather than needing to like hide the fact that it's actually can be a really hard, discouraging process. And it's just funny. And then the other one is about wording things on your resume. I think this speaks to like the experience you can have. You can do anything and write about it in a way that makes you sound really great.
Yes. You're like, oh, I was a #1 expert in that.
Yes. I said, this guy's talking about how sleeping is making him just so prepared for his job. And if that should not encourage you with the fact that any of your experience is worthwhile and can set you up for success
and valuable.
It is valuable. But those are our TikToks. If anyone, like I said earlier, and this is this is for University of Arkansas. If you go to a different university, I was like, I'm sure you have one. Madeline, do you kind of want to speak about what this
Yeah.
site is? And it's a really good resource.
Yes. So definitely make sure to utilize your career services, your career development center on campus, or even just in the community. I know here at the University of Arkansas, we serve alumni and community members. So if you have a local university, check out their career development center and see what the resources that they have available for students or for just the general population. There's a lot of really good tools and information, specifically here on our Career Development Center's website. I also shared with Abby the Walton College of Business Career Services website as well. So that has a lot of really good business and supply chain specific information. So this could be just a great start to utilize your campus Career Services Center.
Yes. Well, that is awesome. Definitely, there's so many resources for people to use during the application process. So definitely take advantage of it. But Madeline, thank you so much for having this conversation with us. I know our audience is really going to benefit from it because it is a daunting process. And I think you gave so much great advice and great insight. Thank you to our sponsors, Shifts and Let's Talk Supply Chain. But Madeline, seriously, thank you. This conversation.
Thank you, Abby. It was great to see you.
It was so good seeing you. And again, thank you for donating your time.